I'm the producer of Lexx, and I'm also one of the writers, and Jeff and Lexx are co-writers. And this is additional material required by contract to go on the end of the show. So here we are. We're back. We weren't planning to be on the end of this show, but we didn't have enough really good material, so you had to use a little bit of us.
And we're not really getting paid for this either.
No.
That's the bad part.
Everyone to understand, we're not getting a red dime for what you're watching right now.
We're just happy to do it because we care for you people in a special way.
Okay, first of all, thank you for watching the show.
Thank you so much for watching the show. If we could come over there and give you all back rubs, we'd do it in a heartbeat. But since we haven't been paid, you know, we can't do that for you. But if you want to come over here to Halifax, Nova Scotia, where we are right now,
we'll take you out for a
Halifax.
drink. The whole country.
www.lexcom.
We are digressing here. I'm supposed to talk about how the CG works. Normally it's CGI, computer-generated imagery, but we just call it CG for short, or computer generation. And what basically happens is that we want to build sets inside the computer, because we can build bigger sets for less. And it's not even so much less. We can build bigger sets than for basically any amount of money. And so we tend to try and do things on a large scale, build planets or giant, mile-wide rooms, or, kind of vast spaces. And as a matter of fact, I will say that we are a bit inspired by the Moebius comics, because if you know the Moebius comics, they tend to be really tight stuff and these large vistas. And that's what we can do in the show. We can go tight, which means we usually build the set in the background, or we do a big vista shot. Okay, the director, Reiner Matsushita.
No, he didn't direct number two.
He didn't direct number
It's Ron Oliver.
Ron Oliver. How could I confuse them?
Because you're the producer.
No, because we're doing all these things at the same time.
You're a creative guy who's bubbling with ideas. You can't be expected to keep these things
remember
straight
details
as to
like
who's
where
directing
you
your own
live
movies.
And
what
day it is.
But Ron Oliver, what a great guy.
Terrific guy. Nice bald head.
He's a bald guy.
Hey, you saw him in the show. He was the guy in the container at the very beginning.
He was Carcoon.
Carcoon the Shed.
That was really Ron Oliver.
Movie making is movie making. It's the same thing, except instead of having little model shots or paintings or whatever of outer space, we now have these computer-generated images. And it basically means we shoot, John Smith against a backdrop, and then later on they throw in the images that they want to put behind John Smith.
Roll sound, please. Sound speed. Down a bit.
3 shot, take 4.
Mark.
Lots of energy. And action.
Dexter 9, the secret planet of the milk-fed boys.
Cut.
Oh, it's so weird.
Another thing that I wanted to let you in on is sometimes what we did is we create the sets primarily in CG, and sometimes foreground, but very often all the big backgrounds tend to be CG. And there have been cases where we are not satisfied with that CG, and in one case, in this show, we shot the scene, which we shot against green, an ultimate green, a very wonderful, beautiful color, and then we did a background which was filled in. So we'll show you a piece of that. There's the scene against green.
Is it possible? You look Brune G. Could you be the fulfillment of the prophecy?
And then you'll see the same scene with the background in. Here it is.
Brune G. Could you be the fulfillment of the prophecy?
Okay, now you saw it with the background in. There's a little bit of that. But that's not the background you saw in this show, because that background looks kind of cheesy. We had a problem because we did it like that because we had run out of money. But we realized it just didn't work, so we spent a whole lot more money and we redid the scene. So I'll show you a little bit, even though you already saw it in the picture, and here's what we did instead.
Is it possible? You look Brune G. Could you be the fulfillment of the prophecy?
And there's the scene, and that looks better.
We're creating a whole new world here. The show is a fantasy, a futuristic sci-fi fantasy, and none of it takes place on the Earth. It all is on unknown planets in different universes. So we have an opportunity to create kind of a look for each of these places. The whole, from the very concept of the spaceships, the main spaceship, the Lexx, being a giant dragonfly and massive 10-kilometer long creature that's been bioengineered from its sort of organic beginnings as some, in some prehistoric time to being still an insect, but at the same time, man has intruded upon it and engineered the insect with surgical implants like the bridge and the certain, chambers and galleries that are inside the creature. So there's like human engineering, large stainless steel or aluminum structures that are tied into the organic part of the insect. And so those were sort of like the descriptions that we would talk about early on. And we kicked around some ideas about both tensile structures. We mentioned Free Otto's work as a German or Austrian who did a lot of tensile type structures. And I said basically what I was thinking about for the bridge was something that was sort of hung within this large cavity that would be part of the head of the Lexx, part of the insect head. So we'd create some kind of thing there, but you'd see off the edge of it. It would almost be like a floating island. And you'd look over the edge and it would just sort of drop off into space.
Help me! Don't let go!
He went away and he came back with some wonderful little models that he had made out of wire and stretched spandex that he dipped in epoxy or something like that, and it turned into like these little crystal-like insect shells.
The model for this was put together by Nigel Scott, who's a local designer, and it gives you kind of a sense of the whole centerpiece. It doesn't give you any sense of what kind of goes around it, which is elements that are still being worked on. But the idea being is we've got a number of different designers that have participated on this, and we, Paul and I work with them, giving them a rough idea of where we thought the look should go, and then let them take input some ideas and play back and forth. Here we definitely went, an organic structure, but there are man-made elements that using a lot of tensile materials and things like that to try to give it a. The other set that ties into this that also exists within the Lexx is the P chamber. These are brains that have been stored, the brains of all the predecessors, the shadows from time in the past, and they're originally they were on the cluster, and now they've been moved on to the Lexx, and they're in their own little environmental thing that provides the blood and things like that they would require to survive.
No good! Too salty!
Visual effects is a realm of an area of filmmaking where we're adding anything from sets to creatures to vehicles in a post-production process, things that can't be shot in camera. So we're taking live action footage, adding a computer-generated element to it or a computer-generated aspect to it, and putting everything together into final shots, and that is the visual effects domain. CGI stands for computer-generated imagery, and that covers a fairly broad range of visual effects, anything from shots that are all CG, completely computer-generated, all the way down to small enhancements to a live-action scene, like a spark hit or smoke that might want to go in a certain direction, or minor elements along those lines. So it covers a very broad range.
Right!
We have a number of shots of spacecraft arriving at the cluster planet, which itself is a computer-generated element. And this is an example of a completely computer-generated scene where we have prisoner transports, upper-class transports, various bits of spacecraft that would be arriving or existing around our main planet, our cluster planet. We also have creatures that are called cluster lizards. Some of the shots will be real puppet lizards, some full size, some hand size, and other shots of the cluster lizards would be computer generated. So a real key there, a real challenge is to make the computer generated elements look identical to the live action elements, so that they're integrated seamlessly and they flow together seamlessly. Green screen is a way for us technically to be able to separate the actors from that green backing, and as a result of doing that, being able to put anything else behind in place of that green that we like. So green is a very, very good color to use because skin tones do not have green. Also technically it's a very, very good color because when it's converted from the film analog world into the digital world, because of the algorithm or the equation or the formula that's used, green is a much better color for us to be able to pull the actors away from. So we're shooting them on green so that we can very easily extract them from that background and put any set or environment behind them that we like. One of the things that we're best at is taking live action elements, whether they be sets or props or puppets or what have you, and replicating them in the computer domain so that they can go into the show and not look like we've gone from live action land into computer generated land. We don't want to see that scene. We don't want people to look at the show and say, there's a computer generated effect. Now we're back in live action. That shouldn't be, that shouldn't even cross their minds, because if it does, then we haven't done our job. One of the reasons that we're using a lot of computer animation and computer elements is because of the economy of scale and cost. A lot of our environments that we're putting our actors into, the script calls for them to be in huge cavernous rooms, sometimes 300-400 feet high, or going to locations that can't be reproduced cheaply on this planet. So we're using the technology to its ultimate advantage in being able to make spaces that could be any size. And it's in the computer, it's almost as simple to make a space that might be 500 feet tall as it is to make a space that's 10 feet tall. So we're using the technology to enhance, I guess, the production value of the whole overall project. And I think what the producers have really focused on is using the technology where it is best suited. We're looking at about affecting about 75% of the overall footage. That doesn't mean that it's 75% computer generated. There is a bit of a fallacy that's sort of been attached with the show, saying this is a computer-generated show. This isn't a computer-generated show. This is a live-action show taking place in locations that can't be very easily reproduced on Earth. What we're doing is taking about 75% of the scenes and doing something with them.
Here we go.
There's no way of knowing for sure, but all indications point to the fact that the Dark Zone, or the Lexx, or whatever we end up calling the show, is using computer technology to a far greater extent than any other television show and even most feature films have in the past. A number of shows, things like Babylon 5 and Space Above and Beyond and other shows along that realm, do use a lot of computer animation and computer effects, but they're generally relegated to the area of there's a separation. We're in a live action set, we do all business there, then we cut outside and see a few spacecraft coming by, and then we cut back to live action again. We're using it in a much more integrated fashion and to a much larger degree. I think that when this show is all said and done and it's gone to air, it will be by far the most computer-generated or computer-enhanced show ever produced for television.
And now we'll talk about the upcoming picture, number 3.
Excellent idea.
And that's called Eating Pattern.
Now, I mean, we have to say, in all honesty, that no, I can't.
Go ahead. You can say it. You can say it.
No, I was going to say that Tim Curry was just wonderful. We had another actor. I don't know whether you ever heard of Rutger Hauer, but Rutger, who we love him.
Love him. Big Dog.
He's a great guy. Big Dog, we used to call him. If you remember him from Blade Runner, he looks a little different because he's sort of had a few bowls of pasta.
He's mellowed in his success.
Who's that British heavyweight fighter? Frank Bruno. You know
Frank Bruno.
You know how big Frank Bruno's ass is? It's nothing compared to what Rutger's got going.
He's in his Marlon Brando phase.
In the potty department.
But he's big crapper, but terrific talent.
Great guy, and it's actually if you go out and rent the next one, Eating Pattern, that is a movie which I think it's safe to say is more along the model of how we'd like the series to go, in a way, in the sense of they go to a planet and have a very nasty adventure. It's very nasty. You think it's going to be kind of bad, but then it gets very nasty.
And show number 3 is obsessed with
drugs, probably.
Yeah.
Drugs and some sex.
We
a lot of violence.
deal with
thick green gel-like fluid.
We're obsessed with violence.
Spilling out everywhere. Yeah.
And drugs and worms.
Worms.
Sex.
Okay. We're into worms.
Sexy worms.
Big time.
And you get to meet Whist. important thing in show number 3, or picture number 3, is your worm is your friend.
I think it will move you in ways that you probably weren't meant to be moved.
It will change your light bulb, I think.
It'll change your light bulb,
Watch
which
that
is
scene
an
again.
illumination. And
Old light bulb out, new light bulb in,
because
I felt it.
We're not just trying to make average science fiction movies here. We're trying to make meta film.
We want to change your life.
We're trying to go beyond film into something which hopefully will not only entertain you, but give you something that maybe you can grow a little.
Tail slate.
Marker.